It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Baldwin Wallace's head women's wrestling coach, Coach Mia Rodriquez. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you want to get started in coaching in college women's wrestling?
I actually didn't start off knowing that I wanted to go into wrestling, like coaching wise, as far as being like a head coach, especially at the college level. When I originally graduated, I thought I was going to go coach at a high school. I got an opportunity to go coach at a college, and then I just ended up falling in love with it, and I really wanted to pursue it further with being a head coach, but that was not the original game plan by any means.
What was that experience like for you competing in collegiate wrestling and going to Camville's?
Campbellsville was a very unique experience. It was definitely one of a kind. I got to be a part of a really amazing program and have an amazing head coach. So he's had a lot of success throughout his career as a coach, but also he's continuing to have success. So it was really good to have kind of that mentorship and then see how much work he puts into it and like the way he was training us to be great people, but also training us with wrestling and then keeping up with our academics and everything else that he did on like such a high regard. So that was something that was really, really amazing to see. And then also just like being on a team with amazing teammates and being able to learn so much different wrestling technique from them was
While,
incredible.
while at Camville, what was that experience like getting to put on that singlet and representing them?
It was amazing. I know it was something I was always really proud of. Our coach really emphasized how important it was to always like step out and give our 100% effort and know that we've trained and we've prepared for everything that we're going to be exposed to as athletes. And he did an amazing job of keeping us like ready to go with that.
As a collegiate athlete, what were some of your biggest accomplishments on the wrestling?
I'd say some of the biggest wrestling accomplishments at Campbellsville were just being a part of amazing team. Our team won 3 national titles altogether. So, I mean, that alone was amazing, but also getting to compete at that national tournament was one of a kind. It definitely was a unique experience. It was really snowy in Fargo, in Jamestown, North Dakota. So it was very unique in every way.
After your collegiate time of competing, what was it like getting into coaching and first coaching on the club side?
It wasn't a ton of new things for me. I had helped coach with like my high school program, but also my dad was a coach, so I helped him with his middle schoolers a lot of the time while I was still in high school. So that wasn't a ton new. It was something I always knew I wanted to do, and it was something I loved doing, especially for like a girls wrestling club was really fun because I didn't have that experience growing up. I always just wrestled with boys. So I thought it was really awesome that we got to have like a group of girls who are all just learning around other girls.
How was that experience like being a head club coach for that girls wrestling program?
It was great. I got to learn a lot. I got to, really tone in on like, all right, really teaching from the bottom up, just because if you already know something, it's a little bit easier to just like tweak small things, but really having to like dive back into when I was a beginner wrestler and like having to explain all of those things to such like a simplified version.
Going to North Central, what was that experience like for you being a grad assistant?
It was amazing. I think it helped me a lot into how my role is now as a head coach. My boss at the time, Joe Norton, the head coach there, he taught me a lot. He was always really open to me asking him questions and helping as far as like I had to do tours on my own and recruiting and like he gave me a lot of tasks that really prepared me for my role as a head coach.
What were some of the things that you learned as a grad assistant to help you to transition over to being a head coach?
A lot of it was just the mentorship. I mean, everything that goes into the role, whether it's like small stuff with helping your athletes and like wrestling with them, or just recruiting and like staying up to date with texting your recruits or emailing or calling. A lot of like small, tiny stuff that doesn't seem like it's vastly important to the job is super important. And I think those are the things that I like took away the most from that role. It also was just a really great way for me to kind of be really thrown into like what to expect out of coaching on the college level and how you have to go about that in every single day. You don't really get to just like, oh, I'm going to take a week vacation, not touch my work. Like you still have to be working all the time, which is something that I find really fun and engaging.
While at North Central, what were some of your accomplishments as a grad assistant?
I got to be a part of their team. The girls did amazing the year I was there. We had 15 All Americans go, and the team as a whole, they won the national title for the NCAA category. So that was a one of a kind experience. So it was really amazing being a part of that. They worked their butts off, and I helped in every aspect that I could. But a lot of it came down to the head coach that was there and just all the girls that came before that year too. It was a lot of work put into that one year of winning.
How was that transition like for you going from being a grad assistant to being a head coach for a program?
It was a little tough at first, lots of like learning curves and things, but I think the one thing that made it really easy was how much responsibility and how much I could still rely on my old mentor at North Central. So he helped me a lot with like whether I had a quick question for him, he would always help me in like, oh yeah, I think you should do this. But also our men's wrestling coach at Baldwin Wallace, he was a huge mentor when I first got there and helping me learn the campus, learning the community of people here and just all the different aspects that he had like a more introspective depth of knowledge on.
Coming to Baldwin Wallace, what was that experience like for you being a head coach for the first time in your coaching career?
It was very exciting. It was a lot of unknowns for sure. Um, it's still, a work in progress as this is going into our first competition year. So I'm really excited for it. But I think our girls are doing amazing so far. They've really took it upon themselves to like lead the way for what they want this program to be, and it really aligns with every reason why I recruited all of them. So I think it's going to be a really good year for us. But it's really, really exciting.
For you, what was that feeling like stepping onto that mat for the first time as a head coach?
Well, I have yet to do that. Our first competition will be on November 2nd at the Tiffin Open, which is a little bit closer for us. So all of our girls will compete for the first time there. So I'm sure it'll be really exciting. I'm slightly nervous about it, but that just comes with knowing that there's so much to be done before then. So we've still got plenty of time to get all of that done. But I think it's going to be a great first tournament, and I think our girls will really go out there and they'll do well.
What will that feeling feel like to get to step onto that mat for the first time and leading them into a match?
I'm really excited. I think a lot of them have been putting in so much hard work over the summer and just even during the start of the school year. Like they've been working out on their own, lifting on their own, and doing all of the right things. So I couldn't be more happy and proud to like be in their corner for them to support them through this.
What does it mean to you to be an inaugural coach for the women's wrestling program?
I think it's amazing. I think it's a really big step in the right direction. There's not a lot of women coaches, and the number is always growing. But I think we need more out there just because with like a women's sport, it is a little bit more complicated than you know, just stepping on the mat and wrestling. There's a lot of like the girls' personal lives and things that you have to kind of attend to from time to time. And like those things, they feel a little bit more comfortable maybe with a female coach versus a male coach, which is understandable in all facets. But I think it's something that gives me a really unique perspective to relate to our girls, but also to make sure that, like, hey, I know exactly where you're at. I've been there. I've been this nervous wreck for a tournament. And it can kind of give them some peace of mind a little bit.
How is that a feeling like bringing a program like women's wrestling into a program that already has men's wrestling, but bringing a new, unique spin of women's wrestling to that program?
I think it's been amazing so far. Jamie Gibbs and Jason Zastro, the head coach and associate head coach for our men's program, have been absolutely amazing. They helped me with so many questions and different things as far as getting to know the campus, but also kind of laying down this support system of like the men's program is going to have the women's program back and vice versa, which I think is amazing. It's been very collaborative, so I can't wait to see the way like our ladies support the men's team when they're competing, and then how they do that. I mean, they've done an amazing job with even just spreading the word. Like we had these T-shirts, and all of the men's team had them, and they wear them all the time around campus. So they've done some groundwork for our program already, which is absolutely amazing. And they've had incredible success these past like 12 years from where they've built it up from. So I can't imagine like where our women's side is going to go. Just seeing the incredible support that our men's program has, it makes me very excited for the future of our women's program.
As a new head coach for women's wrestling, what has that been like bringing in a new program as a new head coach?
It's definitely been very unique. There's always going to be learning curves and different obstacles that you kind of just got to push through. So I think that's kind of just where we're at. Like we're just going to have to keep growing and learning as we go.
What has that been like for you as a head coach, building the program from scratch, along with building the coaching staff and the roster around you?
It's been going really well. I know one of the big things when we talk about recruiting that I mentioned to all of our ladies, if they have like girls they want to recommend, is the characteristics. So if you ever walk down our hallway of the athletic department, we have all of our characteristics just lined up on the wall. So like some of them are like grit, determination, commitment, and like all of those aspects are really, really important for the athletic piece, but also just, making sure they're compassionate, they can be a good teammate, they can be there to support their other teammates, like all of those things, and being a good person, all of that matters to me too. I really enjoy working with all of our girls because they're amazing people and they're hard workers. And I'd like to continue, bringing in people who are very like-minded with the hardworking, and they have high and big goals. And, all of those things are what make me love my job more and more every day. And so those things are really key for us when we talk about recruiting as a group.
What does a typical wrestling match look like for you as a coach versus for your athletes?
It's definitely going to be a little bit more stressful for me than it is for them. For them, they get to have, all right, get ready for wins. They're going to do a quick little workout, warm up, win, and then they get to recover by eating some food, drink some water, Pedialyte, electrolytes, all of that good stuff. Versus I get to look at everything, sign off weight sheets and some of the stuff like that, but also helping run their warm up and making sure they're ready, making sure our manager's there to pass out gear, all the different stuff. So there's lots of like small things that I'm sure they don't even realize are like, oh yeah, she's in charge of that. But they do an amazing job with helping out. I mean, they're really good about being on their own, and like if I tell them to do something, I know I can trust them to do it and get it done. So they're really reliant on each other, and I can rely on them, which is nice.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you're going to be competing against?
We'll compete against a lot of NCAA teams. We'll have a few different duels. So some of the duels that we'll have over this competition season, we'll have a duel against Mount Union, Delaware Valley, Alma, and Trine. So those are just like 4 duels that we're for sure having. And then we'll see plenty of other schools. And then as far as when our girls go to the national tournament, they have a regionals first, which will be hosted by Tiffin University. And then after that, we would make a trip to Iowa as long as we have girls qualify, and they'd be wrestling all the rest of the qualifiers, which could be anywhere from the Iowa Hawkeyes to King University down in Tennessee, or, a long list of other universities.
Will that feel like to get to see those programs that are Division One, like Iowa, versus seeing programs like Life University and King's University competing?
They definitely can be different. I think every school has, different things that they provide. A school like Iowa is definitely going to have more resources because they're just a Big Ten D1. That's the nature of the beast, right? But um, as far as it goes for our girls, I always like them to just know, like, it doesn't matter that it's, whoever, whatever the school is. You're out there to wrestle. That's your job out there. Your job isn't to worry where they're from or who they are. Your job is to go out there and wrestle and do your absolute best. So I try and just kind of skip past that just because it's really not super important in the grand scheme of their life. I mean, I want them to be successful on the mat, but also just graduating college, getting a good job. Those things are important too.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams come to your home facility to wrestle?
I can imagine it's probably going to be pretty loud. One thing I know our girls are super excited for is that I've told them for one of our duels, we're going to do theme nights. So both of our home events, we're going to have some sort of theme. Our second duel that we have at home will probably be the loudest and the biggest crowd. So we're doing a back-to-back duel with our men's program. So it will be our women's team versus Delaware Valley and then our men's team versus Delaware Valley, like right back to back. I'm pretty sure there'll be like a short little intermission of some sort, but that one will probably be a super big crowd just because we'll have all the women's wrestlers' parents there and but also the men's parents there, and then a huge crowd from the student body to just be there and support both programs.
What have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish so far for Baldwin's as the head women's wrestling coach?
Um, I think it's definitely just a unique thing of having to deal with just so many like underlining administrative things. So just managing time management, planning everything, scheduling, and just like really staying organized in every aspect.
You talk about, of course, the culture that you built for the women's wrestling program.
My biggest emphasis for our culture has been that we're gonna absolutely like work our tails off, and be super hardworking and determined when it comes to competing, but also to our academics. I want them to, remember like you can't be a college student athlete if you don't do the student part first. That's really important. So they can't just, do the athletic piece as much as we may want to. Like being an athlete all by itself is super fun and great, but they do have to remember that they also do have the academic piece, which is part of the reason why they choose BW, because of their academics. Like a lot of our girls are in very like high and like above my head of knowledge majors. Like we've got a group that's in engineering and nursing and like those bigger majors that aren't at a lot of schools that have women's wrestling are part of the reason why they choose to come here, because they're getting the best academically, but they're also getting a great athletic experience with an amazing team. And so like that's a part of the culture that I want them to continue to remember and build on.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective women wrestlers out there? And what do you look at in as a head coach?
I'll always look at film, so that's always pretty important to me. But I think wrestling is a very unique sport in that you can kind of get a sense of how a person is just based on the way they wrestle. So you can always tell based on like just sportsmanship, are they a sore loser, like stuff like that, can also be telltale signs. But most of the time it just starts with filling out like our little questionnaire form that we have. It's on our website, it's on our Instagram or Facebook or Twitter. Like it's everywhere that you would find anything that has to do with our team or program. Um, I think I even have it in my personal Instagram as well. So like it's pretty easy to find, but it's also on our website. So normally our girls will fill out that. And then from there, I kind of research them a little bit and then I reach out to them. But it always helps if they like email or reach out to us too. It's hard to keep track of everybody. So, it's always super helpful if they can reach out first too.
What is it like seeing those prospective student athletes fall in love with the wrestling mat and the campus?
It's always really fun. So I try and pride myself on doing really well with our tours. So one of the things I do is I'll take them and I'll show them the wrestling room and all the athletic pieces and kind of explain it in depth of like, this is how you're going to spend your time here as a student. And I also try and help them like visualize and piece together, like, this is the atmosphere you'd be in. I think all of our girls absolutely love it here, and they love it here for all the right reasons. But part of that just goes to, like, I put a high emphasis on them taking visits to other places so they can have a perspective of what they're wanting out of their college experience. One of the big things on why our girls are so happy here is because they knew that they wanted to be here. I don't want to force anybody to come to BW who doesn't feel like it's the best place for them. But I do know that it's an amazing place and our girls absolutely love it. So I don't see why not other people wouldn't love it. However, it does have to fit like their academic, their social, and their athletic needs. So all of those things pieced together, it's pretty easy to tell if the girls like it here or not. And normally, unless they're super shy, they're all beaming with smiles and like, oh yeah, I really love my visit here. So it's pretty easy to tell of like, oh yeah, she loved it here. Like, this is probably going to work out for us.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Baldwin Wallace wrestling singlet for the first time?
It's super exciting. I think they're really pumped up about it. I think they couldn't be happier about, going into this freshman year and knowing how much hard work they've already been putting in, but they're going to continue to put in leading up into our first competition. So I think they're all really excited.
What is that like getting to see this inaugural team putting on that uniform for the first time, representing a first-time program?
I think it'll be absolutely amazing. I mean, they've all tried on our singlets at this point, and they've done some pictures and photo ops with them um, for like media day, and they all absolutely love the designs, which I'm super happy about. But they also, I think it gave them some sense of excitement as far as like, this is the uniform I get to compete in. Um, so it was super awesome to see how excited they were about everything. So I'm just looking forward to them competing finally.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those seniors put on that Baldwin Wallace jersey for the last time?
I think it'll eventually be super, super sad and super, super bittersweet for all of us. I'm fortunate enough that I still have a few years before we'll have any seniors. But for when that time comes, I do think it'll be pretty sad. I get to keep them for a little bit of time right now, so I don't really want to think about it too much. But I can't imagine that it'll be very sad. But I think I'll also be really proud of them because they'll probably have come a super long way in those 4 years.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those wrestlers go on into professional wrestling, whether it's AEW, WWE, or the national team?
I think it'll be really exciting. One of the things I know one of our girls has talked about and expressed is staying close to BW after she graduates. So we have a wrestling club that we built on like the back end. So if they do want to pursue like national team or Team USA events, they can still do that through our wrestling club. And then we also have an ROTC that's not far away as well. So they have resources available through both of those. So hopefully some of them will still stick around and they'll try and pursue those national team goals that they have. But for our ones who don't, I think it'll just be kind of bittersweet to see them leave. A few of them are a little bit local, so I'm sure those ones won't go too far. But for our ones that aren't, I can't imagine that they would do, anything that's not going to make me proud or make them a very amazing alumni to like talk about in the future.
What will it be like seeing them go on and going into coaching after their collegiate wrestling career?
If I see any of them coaching, I think that would make me extremely happy. I know I try and just give them the best example and best mentorship I possibly can. Nobody's perfect, but I think if I could see them doing that, it would make my heart so happy. Just because coaching is very time commitment and you have to be patient and you really have to love it for you to be a good coach. And I think all of our girls, they have the potential to do those things. But I think if I got to witness them do that, would be absolutely amazing, incredible.
What would you tell your younger self that is a college wrestler looking back on your career now as being a head coach for a first year program?
Definitely to not cut a ton of weight, be smart about your weight cuts. I think that's something that more and more we're learning about. So really maintaining weight and doing it the right way is more important and way better for you than cutting 10 pounds in one day. um, so definitely that stuff, but also just really being confident in yourself. I think that's the biggest thing a lot of our young women's wrestlers struggle with is their confidence and knowing that like they truly can go far and just, continue to work hard and get through those ruts that are really terrible sometimes after big losses. Um, those things you tend to let them kind of get in your way a little bit. So just persevere and fight through it.
What are some of your future plans for the Baldwin Wallace's women's wrestling program moving forward?
Moving forward, I really would love for our team to place at nationals. I would love for us to send national qualifiers every year. I think those are two goals that our girls are pretty on board with. And then, after this first year and hopefully completing both of those goals, bringing girls to, the U.S. team trials, and then getting girls to make the U.S. national team would be an amazing accomplishment for them. But I think that'd be the next thing I want them to work on.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's wrestling?
Definitely time management. Time management is so important when it comes to college. Just you have so much more free time. So use it wisely. Definitely make sure that you're keeping up with your priorities as far as like taking care of your academics, your athletics, and then you get time for like the social aspect, like hanging out with friends and doing stuff in your free time. Um, but also taking care of your health. It's really easy to have all of these amazing food options and just kind of eat whatever, and it makes your life harder. It's not worth it in the long run. So definitely just mainly time management and then just taking care of themselves, being healthy.
What advice would you give those college women's wrestlers that have aspirations of competing professionally, whether it's AEW, WWE, or the national?
Definitely to stay disciplined, staying disciplined and just acknowledging it's not an easy road. Um, so as everyone can say that that's what they want to do, but very few do it because of how hard the road is there. Um, so just remembering like you have to be extremely disciplined and you actually have to hold yourself so accountable in order to make that a reality for yourself. Um, so really staying ingrained with like, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm going to make it happen is really important for them.
What advice would you have those wrestlers out there that have aspirations of making it to the Olympics to represent the national?
I think the same thing. It definitely takes a lot of discipline and, working hard, but being kind of relentless. Like you're going to have a lot of times that you're right on the cusp and it might be that eighth or ninth time before you actually make it. And it's going to be really hard to get there. Um, so really just remembering how much you want that.
What advice would you have those women's wrestlers out there that are looking to get into coaching after their career?
I would say it depends on the level of coaching. There's lots of resources that are made available. They have like coaching leadership classes and seminars and different things that anyone can have access to. So those are amazing resources that I would definitely take advantage of. But also, it just truly depends on where you're at. Like if you're trying to get into a high school, it might be a little bit easier than getting into like a college. College, the route typically is being a GA, being an assistant, then being a head coach. So that route is definitely plausible. It's just it might take a little bit of time and a lot of learning to get there. And then same thing with like being a head coach at the high school level. You might be a volunteer coach first, and then an assistant, and then maybe a club coach, and then a high school coach. But you can always get into it. You just have to stay diligent and take advantage of all the resources and opportunities that you have available.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to bring in a women's wrestling program into their athletic programs?
I think the biggest thing is finding the right person for that position. Um, it's really hard to find quality coaches who fit the right institution. So you really just have to find that right fit, the person who's happy being there and wants to stay there, I think is the biggest thing. Um, there's a lot of turnover from time to time, especially with just jobs at universities in general. So making sure you find the right fit and making sure that person's going to be happy there is going to be really vital as far as keeping your athletes there retention wise, but also keeping a solid foundation for your program. So yeah, really just finding the right person I think is really important, but relying on your other coaches that you have. I know one thing that I had to do was I had to do like lunch with the coaches. I had to do an interview with a bunch of other coaches. So like, I think all of those things are really important to my hiring process and why I ultimately got the job was they just thought I was the right fit for the university and what our program needed. And I think relying on that advice from our men's programs coaches and other coaches in the department was really, really key for providing and like keeping retention here.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
I think it's really important you find what you want your legacy to be beginning with. And then from there, also just what do you want your athletes' takeaway to be? Each program's different in their own way. Each has their own mission statement and different things that they find important. I think each coach has to kind of customize it a little bit and determine like this is what I want my athletes to see this program as, or this is how I want to help my athletes in their life. So sorting that I think is the biggest key factor to just sorting that all out and then making sure everything's going to work out.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you out on social media along with the program app?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Could you repeat?
Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the program?
You can literally search like Baldwin Wallace Women's Wrestling on Facebook, or our handle for like Twitter, Instagram is at BW_W Wrestling.
Thank you again, Coach Mia Rodriquez, for your interview and best luck in your future at Baldwin Wallace as the head women's wrestling coach.
Yep, thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you'll find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Mia Rodriquez, for your interview and best luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.